What's going on, everybody? Matt here. Today I'm going to be giving my review and thoughts on Star Wars Rebels Season 2 after watching it for the first time. But before I do that, make sure to go down below and subscribe for more content like this. But let's not waste any time and jump into the review. Star Wars Rebels Season 2, I'm very impressed. I think this season as a whole was a good leap up from the first season. I found myself enjoying it more, and when I said Season 1 helped bridge that gap between Episodes 3 and 4, this season did even more to help those 19 years between the two feel less distant. Starting off with the characters, I think all the members of the Ghost Squad had important character moments, and many of them grew in some way throughout the season. Ezra took a great step forward in his path to becoming a Jedi. His skills with the lightsaber have grown a bit. He seems more confident and comfortable with the weapon, but also his connection to the Force seems stronger. He seems more in control of his emotions, and in a few scenarios he was able to find inner peace instead of turning to anger. Now the ending may say something different, but I'll touch on that in a bit. Kanan went through a lot this season, having to learn to put his trust in others. At the start of the season, he is very hesitant on being part of the bigger whole in this rebellion. He'd rather be doing the small things with the squad, but soon he saw the importance of being part of this bigger whole. There were a few times where he had to put his trust in others, more specifically clones, which isn't easy for him to do due to Order 66 and those terrible events that took place in the past. While it did take some time, he soon was able to see a great comrade and place his trust in Rex. Hera in this season had to take on a leadership role within the rebellion, which meant she had to learn how to lead more than just a tiny squad. Seeing her take on this role was great. It definitely took some time for her to settle in, but once she did amazing, leading rebel fighters into battle. Sabine as well stepped up being more of a leader, I would say, this season. I felt that she was more mature and looked at certain situations differently than she would have in the past. Her past also came face to face with her this season multiple times, giving us more information about her and her connection to Mandalore. Now, the one character that I felt got sidelined from the Ghost Squad was Zeb. He didn't have as much to do this season, unfortunately. I did like the episode where he found survivors from his species, where we learn about his past and how there's hope and security for his species in the galaxy. I just wish there was more for him to do overall. And I can't forget about Chopper. As always, he was great. He found a new friend, which sets up this R2-3PO relationship in a gang. He does not disappoint. I think there were many great character moments and character growth this season had, and I found myself liking many of the characters even more this season than I did the last. There was a lot I enjoyed this season. I like seeing the rebellion grow in numbers. It was really cool seeing how the rebellion got to the point that we see later in time and where they can fight better against the Empire. Maybe an unpopular opinion, but I think the Inquisitors in this season were more threatening to the Jedi and their survival. They seem more well equipped than the Grand Inquisitor, which is very weird because you would think the Grand Inquisitor would be better, but they just did a better job hunting down Ezra and Kanan and putting their lives at risk. Now, saying that, I think they were rather annoying. Just their dialogue, the way they talked, the way they interacted at times was just so stupid, and definitely were not as likable as the Grand Inquisitor. While they seem more threatening, the Grand Inquisitor was just more likable. I liked his presence more on screen. Also, I cannot stand the spinning lightsabers. I think they are just so silly, to put it lightly. They're ridiculous. The Empire as a whole this season felt more menacing than they did last season. Maybe that's in part because Vader was more involved and the new Inquisitors were there, but they didn't seem as incompetent, and in general this season felt more mature than last season. Yes, there were still jokes and comedy punches here and there, which were nicely done, but the stakes felt higher, there was more tension, and things did not feel as kiddish. I think they did a good job taking the aspects from the previous season which made it enjoyable, while leaving behind the other aspects that made it less desirable. The art style was something I forgot to mention in my last review, but I don't hate it. It's not as good as Clone Wars from what I saw, but it's not the worst. I mean, Yoda does look like a crackhead, and the hologram Jedi is definitely not Anakin, but overall the art style is fine. I also want to say, when I said last season felt like Star Wars, this season felt even closer to the aspects of Star Wars I love and delivered some amazing Star Wars moments. Now let's jump into the fun and talk about the episodes. The first 4 or 5 episodes in this season are really great, starting off the season hot. The season kicks off by throwing us right back into the action with a space battle. Then the man himself, Vader, shows up to demonstrate his absolute dominance over Ezra and Kanan. And I'll say, I really liked how they portrayed Vader in the scenes he was in. He felt like the Vader from the original trilogy, much more calm and collective than early Vader and the Vader we saw in Kenobi. His fighting style was slower, with more power, powerful strikes. But there were also glimpses of Anakin there, such as the way he spoke to others, how he carried himself, and even his piloting, which is still unmatched. Vader is a character that you don't want to mess up, and I think they did a great job using him in this season, as well as his portrayal. The first 2 episodes really raised the stakes, and I think they were a great way to start the season. The next few episodes followed in suit by bringing in some returning characters in Rex, Wolf, and Gregor. And while I don't know much about Wolf and Gregor, Rex is definitely a familiar face, and it was nice to see him again, and also nice to see that Ahsoka still has so much trust in him. The modified walker they were living on was very cool, and again, it goes back to that idea how the series is helping that connection between episodes 3 and 4. Now, the most important takeaway from these episodes was Kanan interacting with clones. When Kanan realized that these men are clone troopers, he immediately raises his defenses as he should. He saw firsthand what the clones did to the Jedi, so I can't blame him at all for reacting the way he does. And it does take a while for him to learn to trust Rex. There's a lot of arguing and banter between the two due to Kanan's feelings, but later in the season they do learn to work together, with Kanan even going to save Rex at some point. It was really a great story and character moment seeing Kanan come face to face with a clone, the people he saw as an enemy after Order 66. I feel like you can make a whole video about Rex and Kanan, but let's move on. Going forward, a few of the episodes focus on how events and people from the past come back into the characters' lives. For Sabine, we learned that she used to work alongside another bounty hunter before joining the crew. Also, we learned about her connection with the people of Mandalore and how she was part of Clan Ren. If you saw my last review, this was something I was very curious about, why she wore the armor and her connection to everything, and it was nice to finally get some answers. One moment that stood out to me in that episode is when I believe it was Sabine who said, "This Jedi philosophy stuff doesn't work for everyone, that's why we're at war." I think that says a lot about the Jedi, their hypocrisy, and how they try to push their ideals on everyone. Zeb, while he wasn't super prominent, did have some episodes dedicated to his past where we learn he was a captain. He ends up reuniting with 2 members of his species and helps them get home. I honestly thought at the end he was going to stay and be a leader for the remaining members of his species, but oddly enough he went back with the Ghost Squad even when the episode made it seem as if he was leaving. Hopefully Zeb gets more respect in the future seasons. There are multiple episodes where we learn about Hera's past, why she is fighting in the war, and we also get to meet her father, which was a nice surprise. Now knowing her father is also a leader for his people, it makes sense why Hera is such a natural leader because she grew up in that environment. She is also the first one to use a B-Wing, which is just an awesome inclusion. Jumping back to Ezra and Kanan, there's a lot more lightsaber and force use in this season. Across the episodes, we see how Ezra's force ability has grown quite a bit, now being able to use new abilities such as mind tricks. His ability to communicate with creatures is much stronger as well. There's an episode where he's able to communicate with these giant space whales, which is just insane, and I'm curious to see how this ability to communicate with such creatures will play a role in the future seasons. Something else that's great to see with this character is that he's no longer just looking out for himself, but looking to help the rebellion as much as he can. In an episode with Hondo, he sees an opportunity to get supplies the rebels need. This unselfish behavior that he's showing shows the impact this crew has had on him. There was a fantastic episode in which Leia appeared, which was just a blast seeing this character again. I mean, it was just, I got chills. It was just a little great cameo for a good episode. Now I want to talk about episodes 18 through the end because to me, these were the highlights of the season. In the episode titled Shroud of Darkness, Ezra and Kanan seek answers on how to prevent themselves from being tracked by the Inquisitors. So the two of them plus Ahsoka go to the Jedi Temple on Lothal to try and reconnect with good old Master Yoda for some answers. Kanan fights against the Jedi guard who has the appearance of the Grand Inquisitor. He basically tells Kanan that he can't fight and protect Ezra forever. Kanan replies that he will do the best he can. Ezra, on the other hand, is now able to see Master Yoda as his powers have grown. Yoda explains how the Jedi were overcome with fear and how it is important not to let that turn into anger, for that leads to the dark side. For Ahsoka, she finally gets the answers she's been looking for, learning the true fate of Anakin Skywalker. Before the temple collapses, Yoda tells Ezra to find Malachor, which sets up the coming episodes. This episode, like the one similar in Season 1, was great. I loved exploring the characters' interactions to the Force in this temple, and I think it gave them the answers they needed going forward. Episode 19 was fun. It set up this new R2-3PO-like dynamic, but The Twilight of the Apprentice was hands down the best 2 episodes of the season, because it's a whole part 1, part 2 thing. I mean, this might be a hot take, but these 2 parts are some of the best Star Wars, period. At least what I've seen from like the Disney era. I thought they were incredible. After Kanan and Ezra say goodbye to the Ghost Squad, which was actually a pretty emotional moment, they head to Malachor in the hopes to find answers in how to stop the Sith. When they arrive to Malachor and start exploring, they're greeted with like this ancient battleground where there's like ancient script and relics all over the place, and you could just tell this place is old, that it's not visited often, and you know, you just get this chilling feeling that things are not going to go the way these characters are hoping. You also see the Sith temple in the distance, which just looks incredible. It's a really detailed, area, and I think it just brought this really cool chilling vibe to the episode. The whole area, the whole place just feels very dark side Sith-like. Very early on in their exploration of this area, they are greeted by no other than an Inquisitor, which causes Ezra to fall in a pit in self-defense. This is where Ezra, meets Darth Maul for the first time in this epic reveal, and it was just like, yes, he's back. I've been waiting for this moment. I knew he was in this show, and for him to show up here, it's just the cherry on top. It just makes this episode that much better because we have this new foe who is very selfish in the mix now. During all this, Kanan and Ahsoka are taking on the Inquisitors, but Darth Maul is leading Ezra, manipulating him along the way in the hopes to find an old Sith relic, a Sith holocron. Along their way, Ezra and Darth Maul run into some obstacles in which Darth Maul tells Ezra to give into his anger, to give into his rage, to overcome these obstacles in order to get where they needed to. Once the holocron is finally in sight, Darth Maul throws Ezra across this giant pit of endless darkness in order to retrieve it, and once he grabs that holocron, the temple begins to open, glowing red. It just looked awesome. Ezra and Darth Maul end up joining Kanan and Ahsoka in the fight against the Inquisitors. Ahsoka obviously has this history with Darth Maul in the final season of the Clone Wars, so she already has a bad feeling about the whole situation. She doesn't know if he's acting as an ally or just pretending to be one. She just doesn't really know how to feel about the whole thing. Maul ends up taking on the Inquisitors. He tells Ahsoka and Ezra to go to the top of the temple to activate the holocron because he says, the only way to defeat a Sith is to understand them, so they hope that this holocron will help them understand everything. So they go up to the temple to activate it. Maul takes on the Inquisitors. They end up fleeing, and spoiler alert, yeah, Maul betrays them. I mean, who saw that coming? Me. He blinds Kanan, which was just a huge shocking moment. I mean, this changes Kanan's whole world, and he has to rely on his ability of the Force now, which is very strong, and he overcomes Maul and ends up beating him in a duel. At this point, Ezra has put the holocron in the activation chamber thing, and it starts powering up the temple, but before he could leave the top, he is confronted by Darth Vader on top of a TIE fighter, which was just the most epic way to enter a battle. I mean, it was just badass, and it was Darth Vader. It doesn't get any better than that. And then you have Ezra versus Darth Vader, and it's super one-sided. I mean, you can only imagine how one-sided the battle was. Darth Vader was just obliterating him, and Ahsoka shows up out of nowhere to protect Ezra, to fight against her former master as the temple's closing. Ahsoka ends up dealing a crucial blow on Vader, and she cuts off half his mask. You could see Anakin's face, and she tries to reach out to him, but he just denies it. The two continue to duel as Kanan and Ezra escape the planet, and the temple closes without giving us any sense of who wins or who loses until the end of the episode. The last minute of this episode was just super powerful. You have Ezra and Kanan returning back to the Ghost Squad, this very dramatic music playing over. Kanan greets Hera. Rex and Ezra share this moment. You see Darth Maul escaping in a TIE fighter. And then you have Vader walking out of the temple knowing that Ahsoka has lost the duel. And in the final moment, you see Ezra opening the Sith holocron. I mean, what a way to end the season and get you excited for Season 3. The Twilight of the Apprentice is one of the best Part 1, Part 2 episodes I have seen in quite a while. I mean, for one, you have Darth Vader and Darth Maul in the same episode. Never have I thought I would say that, but I did. I mean, they were in the same episode in the same place, which is just insane. These two episodes were just jam-packed with so much great Star Wars. There was so much going on within them that I could just talk about it all day. I mean, there were so many epic moments. These two episodes were definitely, some of the best Star Wars I have seen. Definitely some of the best Disney Star Wars I have seen. And now I'm just excited to see what's to come in this series. I mean, they set up so many things, and I want to see where the characters go because I'm scared for Ezra and Kanan. I'm just, how's he going to cope with everything that happened? So there's a lot going into Season 3 that I'm looking forward to, and I'm just excited to start it. Season 2 as a whole was just a huge step above Season 1. I think all the complaints I had about Season 1 were pretty much fixed in this season. Yes, there were a few things that I could probably nitpick about, but overall the season as a whole was just fantastic. I think the highlights were definitely the beginning and the end of the season, but in the middle there were some fantastic episodes, a lot of fantastic and great episodes, and just overall some great Star Wars. Now, if I had to give this season as a whole a rating, I'd give it a rating of around a 7.9. I think the final two episodes could be closer to a 9 themselves, but a 7.9 for the whole season. It was much longer than Season 1, a lot more going on, and I felt like it just knew what it wanted to do much more than the previous season, and I just enjoyed it as a whole a lot more. But that's my review on Rebels Season 2. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you guys did and have some thoughts on Season 2, let me know in the comments down below. Also, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. But now it's time to go watch Star Wars Rebels Season 3. So hopefully the review will be out soon, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.